I'm Jacob Coomer, and the other day one of my professors asked us to kind of pick our brains about what we think the education system should be as a whole, and so I got a few of my own opinions that I'd like to share with you guys. First off, we were asked, what do we think education should be? What do we think that at a core, what the education system should be? And for me, that's a pretty simple question to ask me. When I look at what I want education to be for not only myself, but for every other student who's going through the education process, I want it to be there to be whatever the student wants to get out of it, right? Like if I'm going to school and I want to be an astronaut, I aspire to be an astronaut, then I expect my school to prepare me for like the next step, like especially for college. I want a lot of college prep class, a lot of AP classes that'll prepare me for that next step, as well as connection opportunities that'll make it so that I get placed in the care of people that I know are going to help me move towards my future, prepare me for my future, right? And it goes the other way too. If I'm just kind of a student who kind of wants to move through school and get out relatively easily, and get like an apprenticeship or get some kind of trade job, learn a trade, then of course the school's gonna have to teach me what the state tells them they have to teach me, but they should also help me, like, again, with the mentors, with all those things that are going to help you get to that next step. And it should be a relatively painless process for those students who aren't necessarily going to go to college and just kind of want to get through so that they can move on with their life. So yeah, overall I kind of just think that it needs to be more of an outlet for students to get what they want out of education. That's what education should be for me at least. The second question was, what do we think the school should be? And now that's a bit of a different one. I'd like to start off by saying that I think schools are structured pretty poorly right now, especially with the idea that the state and the administration kind of decide what is going to be taught and how the teachers teach that. And I think that's it's a very top-down approach, which I don't particularly agree with. I think we talked about it Thursday when we talked about the grassroots idea, where the students and the teachers help design the curriculum, help design what needs to be taught to the students so that they can, because they're the ones in the classroom. Come on, like, the administration, the state, they're not in the classroom. They're not in there day by day knowing how the school's supposed to run day by day. That's not how it works. The students do. The students and the teachers, they know what they need to do. They know the best way that the school can run day to day. So I think that's a big problem with what the school should be. Another thing I'd like to say is that for me, the school should be almost a beacon of hope for kids, like a safe place. They need to be able to go to school and know that they're going to be safe, they're going to be taken care of at this place. Because if you go to school and you feel threatened, you feel like there's dangers around you, you're not ready to learn, you're not going to learn crap. It's not going to work. So you need to have the school be a very safe place where the students are taken care of, especially when some of those students don't have another place like that. Their home, their neighborhoods, they aren't safe places. They need to think of school as their one place where they can just feel at ease, where they can feel taken care of. I know that back at my high school, I know that we had like meal plans where if students who were a little bit less well off, because I was a public school, they could get discounted lunch meals so that they at least had one meal per day, and that's super important. Another thing that affected me personally was we had a campus police officer, right, that would roam the halls, and a lot of people were like, "Oh no, the police are here. That's lame. That's not cool." I loved it. I thought every time I saw them, I'd say hi, and I'd be like, "Thank you," because that made me feel safe. That made me feel like this was a place where I can learn without any dangers coming to me. So I think that's very important, that the school should be a safe beacon of hope for kids. All right, the third question was what kind of methods, what kind of curriculum? I think it was the curriculum. Yeah, the curriculum question. What things should be taught? And for me, that's a lot about what I was talking in the first part. That it should be whatever the students want it to be, right? Of course, the state and the system that we're in, the state's going to tell us what we need to teach, what we need to educate our kids on. But I think that the students should help decide like where that goes, like what should happen. For me, the educator is more less of an educator, more of a facilitator for linking the gaps between what the state wants the kids to learn and what the students and how the students want to learn it, right? Like the state's telling you what you need to teach, but the students are telling you how to teach it, which I think would be a great idea. And At least that's how I would run. That's if I was running the school, that's how I would make it. I'd let the state tell me what I need to teach, because that's the system we're in right now. Of course, I'd change that if I had the ideal system and make it so that the teachers knew what they needed to teach. But the students are going to decide how to teach it. It goes back to that example from Milner, where the teacher would, if the teacher had a particularly diverse classroom, she would take the literature that she needed to teach, take the ideas that she needed to teach, but tailor them and pick the authors and pick the people who wrote this stuff for these students, so that they could have a better connection, because it's all about the connection for me with the students and the teacher. The students need to have a great connection to the material that they're learning. So that's the curriculum I would have. It would be state decides what basis we're gonna have, because that's the system we're in. Obviously, if it was my world, it'd be the teachers, and then the students decide how we're gonna teach that. All right? So the fourth question was, what methods would we like to employ so that our students are more connected to the classroom? What methods of teaching, right? And I like to share a crazy idea here. I like to share something that I think is pretty outlandish and not realistic at all, but I think it'd be funny. I think it'd be great, honestly. What if there was a classroom, right? You go to the classroom, you look at your, of course, the night before or the week before, you look at your Schoology, your Edline, your Blackboard, whatever your school's using, right? Whatever your school's deciding to use for their outlet for student connection, and you give them their textbook, of course, that they're gonna have. They're gonna learn the material, and you give them some supplementary things, right? Some websites, some books, some supplementary reading, and they look at that. They look at the unit. They're like, oh, here's the learning objectives for this week. Here's the learning objectives for this day. And they go in and they take that, they look at that, they learn it, they are prepared for class. And they go in the classroom and no one knows who the teacher is. Like, the teacher's just sitting amongst them like a faceless person. Like, they don't know who the teacher is, right? And everyone sits in their groups and they talk, they communicate about the material that they studied. And they learn through each other what the material they need to learn is. And I think that'd be really cool, and then like the scenario plays out in my head where it's like, you know how you remember it. You all remember it in high school when you were in that subject and you had no idea what you were doing, but there was that one kid, that one super expert in the subject, right? The super expert. And every time you and your immediate peer group couldn't figure something out, you'd go to that person. Now imagine that person was the teacher, right? So the students have exhausted all their resources. They've talked to each other. They've communicated. They've gone over the books. They've gone over the material. They've watched the videos again, and they still don't get it. They go to that one person they feel comfortable going to because they're an expert on the material, and that person is the teacher, right? So I think the big deal is that, like, all in all, like, I understand that that's not really realistic, because, there's like, you're gonna tell who the teacher is. They're older. They look it. You can look a teacher, right? But it's just a what if scenario. So I think the big deal for me is that you can't have someone lecturing. No lectures. That works in college because people already have that basis of knowledge and they're looking for that higher learning, and that's reasonable in the college scenario. It also doesn't make sense to have one-on-one learning in a college scenario when there's 5,000 or so kids and 200 teachers. Like, that doesn't, like, obviously I don't know those numbers exactly because I don't know that too intimately, but it doesn't make sense to have one-on-one learning in a college scenario. But for the high school scenario, for the middle school, for the elementary, you can't have someone lecturing. It just promotes the kids not paying attention. I know I didn't. Look at any of the lecture classes that I took in high school, and I guarantee I didn't get a B or I got a B or below in all of them. Which, I'm not saying grade is the most important thing. I think the understanding is also there too. I can't tell you 2 things that happen in those classes. But so the big deal is you can't do lectures. Lectures don't work in the grades 1 through 12. I don't think they work at all, which is a big deal. I think the biggest thing is that you need to close the gap between teacher and student, right? You need to close that gap and make it so that they're on almost an equal playing field, right? They're all looking to learn from each other, and they're all looking to learn the material. Of course, the teacher's going to have the material known so that they can be an outlet for the students to come to, but it's important that there isn't a huge gap between the two. All right, and the last question that we were asked was, what do we think the purpose of education should be? Now, that's a big one. That's a big one. And it kind of goes back to what I said in the first question, was that it should be what the students want to get out of it, right? It should be what the students want to glean the information from, right? It should exist to serve the student, right? The purpose of education should exist to serve the student what they want to get out of education. But more than that, it needs to be in institute of social change, right? It needs to be a place where we're educating students on how to make the world a better place. I mean, think about it. Think about it from teacher to teacher. We're educating the people who are going to take care of us 30 years down the line. Let's be real about it. We're teaching these kids who are going to change the world, for the better, for the worse, and it's up to us to make sure it's for the better, because personally, I want the people taking care of me to know what they're doing, right? I mean, that's a little selfish, right? But ideally, they should be making the world a better place, right? So I think that's what the purpose of education, it should be whatever the students want to get out of it. It should be a service to the students, but it should also be a service to the world. Like, it should be a service so that the world will be a better place afterwards, and that's our job, to educate. While we're teaching Algebra 1, while we're teaching how to read, write, we should also be teaching these kids how to make a world a better place, you know? And I think that's very important for us moving forward as a society. If we want to change, it needs to start at education. So yeah, that's what I think. You can choose to agree or disagree, but thank you for letting me share this time with you guys. Bye.